Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to verse-by-verse-BibleTeaching.com. My name is Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going through chapter 4 of the book of Galatians. And we're excited to be starting a new chapter today. And I guess to get us started off, Mike, you want to do an intro to what we're doing?
Okay. Well, we've been looking at, we finished chapter 3 last week. And really what was going on there was Paul was defending the message of the gospel from a doctrinal standpoint. He started that at the beginning of verse 1, chapter 3. And that whole idea is really going to continue up until to verse 31 of chapter 4. Now, between here and verse 24, he's going to be talking really through this idea of salvation that is through promise rather than through the law, and that's really sort of the focus of these 10 verses that we're going to be looking at today. You'll see that there's going to be a lot of contrast and a lot of talking about law versus grace, and how the law and the works was a curse, and how we have been, through grace and faith, we've been lifted up as adopted sons. And that's really going to be kind of the focus of these last couple verses.
Cool.
So let me we'll just jump right in it here. Verse 1, chapter 4 of Galatians. I mean that the heir, as long as he is a child, is no different from a slave, though he is the owner of everything. So Paul is continuing his point here. He started in chapter 3, verse 25, namely that the sons of God are sons indeed rather than just slaves. And this continues through the next 7 verses here in chapter 4. In this verse, it's pointed out that an heir, when he is young, is just the same as a slave. Since this is obviously germane to the next 7 verses, let's look a little bit at the sons of God in the New Testament a little bit. We talked a little bit about how they were in the Old Testament. As spiritual sons, we are made sons through faith. We are made sons through faith. When we put on Christ, to borrow Paul's phraseology, we are made sons of God. The phrase sons of God is often used in a similar manner as the phrase children of God. In relation to our standing as sons/children of God, here are a few phrases that use both of those two, and we'll start with children of God first. Romans 9:8. This means that it is not the children of the flesh who are the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted as offspring. Romans chapter 8, verse 21, that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Then we've also got the phrase children of God here in John, and not for the nation only, but also to gather into one, into one the children of God who are scattered abroad. And finally, John 1, verse 21, but to all who did receive him, who believe in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. So from these 4 verses, we can see a few things here from the phrase children of God. We are counted as God's offspring, that creation will be set free in a similar manner to us being raised to the children of God, that all of God's children will be gathered into one, which is a point which is interesting in view of Galatians 3. That's a point that Paul makes using slightly different language just in chapter 3 there, at the end of chapter 3. And that those who received him and believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Now, concerning the phrase sons of God, check out these verses. Matthew 5, verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Which is interesting because we see in view here that peacemakers, people who work for peace, who make peace, are going to be called the sons of God. We see that Luke 20:36, for they cannot die anymore because they are equal to angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. We see there, for the creation waits with longing for the revealing of the sons of God, that they will be raised, that they are now equal with angels and are sons. They are sons of the resurrection. And finally, Romans 8:19, for the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God, which is, I think, the most interesting one to take just that one phrase to think about, that all of creation is actually eagerly waiting for the revealing of these sons of God. So we see from the above verses in the accompanying list, it's illuminating to check out this idea of the sons of God, and as we see here in Galatians 4, that there is no difference from a slave, though he is owner of though he is owner of everything, as long as he is a child, even though he's sort of treated as a slave sometimes, until the revealing in this case of the son, and the revealing in this case of faith. Chris?
All right. Well, I took 1 and 2 together. Well, so I'm just going to go ahead and read them both. Now
Okay.
I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be lord of all, but is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the father. First, I'd make the point that this is actually really concluding the statements from chapter 3, and sometimes it's important to note that the chapter divisions are not inspired. Paul.
Yeah, sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're terrible.
Right, and for the most part,
Yeah.
they do seem to end on and thoughts, and
Yeah.
what a monumental task that must have been to
Yeah.
be commissioned to make.
I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Seriously, I mean that was like a lifetime job, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The foreman breathing down his neck, like, "What do you got today?" It's like, no. Anyway, it was actually done by a guy in the 13th century named Stephen Langton, and another guy, Cardinal Hugo de Sancto, or I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. And it's like I said, it's a 13th century thing. But this is kind of one of those times where it doesn't really make a clean break, and he is concluding this thought. Here, Paul is making this illusion, and it really requires some kind of understanding about Roman and Greek culture into really getting what he's saying. Again, he's saying that if you think about it, it doesn't make a lot of sense that the heir, as long as he is a child, differs nothing than a servant, though he is Lord of all. What's really in view there is that in ancient times, in those cultures, a child might be raised by hired hands or slaves. But interestingly, this word here is different than the pedagogos that we talked about last week, which was sort of this person that would take them to school and hired to sort of be their really making sure they're on task, and that kind of guy. It's not that word. It's really has this in view sort of a council of different functions of servants and slaves that are raising this person. But the child's coming of age was not decided in the Greek and Roman cultures by a particular age, like a bar mitzvah in a Jewish tradition, because at the Sabbath after a Jewish boy's 12th birthday, he would have his bar mitzvah, and that would kind of be the becoming a man ceremony. Actually, interestingly, the term bar mitzvah means son of the law. That's when you become a son of the law. But here, Paul is discussing rather this event in Greek and Roman culture that would be at the discretion of the father. The father would decide when the son was ready to become a man, sort of thing. And actually, this coming of age was considered the point in which the father basically adopted his son. It was a really important thing. So Paul is concluding his thoughts of chapter 3 of making this big thing of this, and he is saying that a child in training, when we are under the law, it's kind of like a child in training, but it looks forward to a day when the training will be complete and fulfilled, which in fact it was fulfilled with Jesus Christ. And it says there in Matthew 5:17, an interesting phrase, which is, "Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill." And that's all I have for verse 2.
That's great stuff, Chris. That's really fascinating about the that whole thing about the Greek adoption and stuff. I've never heard that. That's really interesting.